All right. Good morning. Here we are. And let's get started with a little bit of background music and visuals here for you. Oh, yeah, okay. Looks good. We're going to start in about 15 minutes. Welcome. Hey, Bob. Thanks for checking in. So, yeah, for the next 15 minutes or so, we're just going to sit back and let people check in, say hello. Here we are, live stream, SpectraLayers Pro 8, new features. Part 1, definitely part 1. There will be more live streams that show live features in SpectraLayers Pro 8 in the future, in the very near future. But for today, we're just going to kind of focus on a narrow set of features. My name is Mike Scheibinger, and I'm in Wisconsin in the United States. And right now it's Saturday morning in Wisconsin. Nice sunny day, beautiful weather, and 10:47 a.m. We'll start precisely at 11. But for now, just sit back and relax, grab a beverage, and start your weekend. Start your weekend off with a nice, relaxing SpectraLayers Pro 8 tutorial. Really good to be here. Hello from Dusseldorf. Detlef's checking in. Hello, Soren. I think you've been, Soren, I think you've been to these live streams before. I think I remember you. Hey, John. Hey, Bolivia. Cambridge, UK, checking in. Yeah, it never fails to amaze me, all of the people checking in from all over the world. This is really a great time. Cool, it's very cool. So anyway, yeah, welcome. It seems like we have a good stream, and things are moving right along here. Yeah. Hey, David Wood, thanks for checking in. Looking forward to learning more about getting the best out of the new features for sure. That's why we're here, to take advantage of all the new features in SpectraLayers Pro 8 for sure. And today is definitely going to be a deep dive into some features that, frankly, that you may have overlooked, because some of the features that we're looking at today are not top-line features that we chose for the launch of SpectraLayers Pro 8 videos, and there are 5 of them. We will go over those videos a little bit. I'll explain what they are. And so, this live stream here is going to be a combination of new features that are not featured in the existing launch package of videos for SpectraLayers Pro 8, and stuff that is featured in the videos, but we're going to take a closer look at them and look at precisely what they do in a sound design scenario. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Chico, California. Yeah, Greg Ondo's sessions for Cubase are excellent. Superstar stuff, man. That stuff is so beautiful. He's so many followers, and so many people go to the Cubase, Club Cubase, right? That's what they call it, and learn all about that. And yeah, excellent. So here I am. I'm at Virtu Studio. I'm in my home studio. This is my project studio. And the video that you're watching here was assembled from a bunch of photographs that I took last week when a friend of mine was here, and he brought the instruments that you see in the video, these are all homemade instruments. They're known as what they call circuit bender. He's a circuit bender, and he creates instruments from other instruments, like, toy instruments, anything that makes noise. And so he'll grab some of that stuff and take it apart and grab the soldering iron and start going to work on it. And then, later he pulls the electronics out of some of that stuff and makes little modules of it that he puts into these racks. And then he outfits them with CV gates and, MIDI and stuff like that. And every sound that you hear right now is being generated from these homemade circuit bent instruments, except for the drums. The drums came from a sample library, but there's only 2 drums, and so they don't factor in a lot. They just, But everything else is this beautiful circuit bent material that you can see the machines that made these sounds here in front of you now. All right. What are you mostly using SpectraLayers for? I use SpectraLayers in everything. I use it to fix things, and I use it in creative sound design. And today I'm going to show you a little bit of both. I'll show you a real-world scenario in which I fixed something that was, kind of defective, and it was a huge time saver. And then we'll go deeply into a sound design exercise in SpectraLayers Pro 8, in which I take a sound that I recorded right here in my project studio, and we'll take a sound that I made down here and dissect it and make something new and different out of it using all the new features in SpectraLayers, plus some of the legacy features. They all work together. All right. So we're going to start in about 7 minutes, and I've set this video to loop, so enjoy the background visuals. It's pretty to look at, and the ambient music is nice and calm and relaxed, and low pressure. A low pressure situation today for sure. We're just going to relax and get deeply into it. So, yeah. Some of this presentation is scripted. Like I know what I'm going to do and what I'm going to show. And some of it is just spontaneous. We'll go off the tracks and create something that is spontaneous. And SpectraLayers is, once you get to know SpectraLayers, it's really easy to do really spontaneous creative work driven by your ideas and your intuitions. And SpectraLayers now, with the new artificial intelligence assisted processes, it works so fast, and you can try all different kinds of things in a really short amount of time and get really impactful results with the power of that AI technology behind you. And I'm telling you, artificial intelligence in these software applications in Pro Audio is really coming to the fore, and it's real. It's not hype; it's a real thing. So you'll see that today. Hello from Vancouver! Yay! Thanks for checking in. So we have lots of people. Analog actual instruments. This is as analog as you can get. I mean, this stuff is made of wood and wires. It's, I'm an analog lover. I really do like, I like analog sounds and I like analog synthesizers. And what's really cool these days is to see analog synthesizers making such a huge comeback. People are putting out analog synthesizers now that are kind of like they're better than ever. They do more. And now, one thing I've seen is the ability to control your analog synthesizer from your DAW using digital controls. And so, people are making these analog synthesizers and then overlaying them with digital interfaces that can control the analog circuitry in real time from the DAW. And to me, that represents the cutting-edge state-of-the-art in analog synthesis. Okay. Here in this image, you can see this is, I don't know, I call it a breadboard. It's a place where people can design circuits. Oh, it's gone to be replaced by a leaf. So, right, analog. Got your, been mostly using this to strip instruments and get acapellas of songs for DJing. Yeah, great. That was a feature on mixed stems, and that feature was introduced in SpectraLayers Pro 7. And again, another AI-assisted feature, an artificial intelligence assisted process that does a lot of work really fast. You could work for a month on one of these files and still not get the kind of results that you can get in 30 seconds or less with the AI-assisted processes in SpectraLayers. I'm new to SpectraLayers. Picked up SpectraLayers for my first audio post-production project. Great. Well, today you'll see different ways that you can use SpectraLayers in post. In particular, the Ambience match feature is really handy in post, and we'll be discussing that feature in some depth today. Most of the demonstrating today is going to happen in the SpectraLayers standalone application, but we will definitely move over to Cubase and do some stuff in ARA mode. ARA is Audio Random Access, and it's a process developed in conjunction with Slemony and PreSonus, I believe, that kind of like supercharges your plugin environment so that it can look backward and forward in time and open up a much, much wider window into processing than was previously available using standard VST processing. So right, congratulations on picking up your copy of SpectraLayers. You will enjoy it. All right. And we'll start in about 2 minutes. Again, I started a little bit early just so that we can make sure that we have a nice healthy stream, and especially so that I can greet people coming in, because again, this is one of my favorite things, is seeing people from all over the world checking in. Filter Freak. Yeah, I love SpectraLayers. Me too. And then it's almost time to start. We'll start in about a minute. And again, my name is Mike Scheibinger. I'm down here in Virtu Studio in central Wisconsin. I'm very close to the capital of Wisconsin, Madison. And it's a great day. And I love starting a Saturday morning off with one of these hangouts. It's brilliant and so much fun. So much fun. All right. And perfect timing. This video is coming to a conclusion here. And then we'll close out of my QuickTime player and begin. All right. Perfect timing. Nice. Okay, let's get started. Oh, how convenient. On my screen here, you can see a keyboard instrument, and I'm going to explain what this instrument does. And we are going to be working with some sounds today that was created by this circuit bent instrument. So here we are on a Saturday morning, and as far as I know, the Saturday morning time is a pretty good time for people to check in. I think we asked about that a while back, and Saturday was a pretty popular choice. Now, the best way to learn about SpectraLayers Pro is by watching demonstrations just like this one. And this is the 7th or 8th live stream. And the last one, I believe, was about the imprint process. And again, that was a sound design focused presentation. And this one is about new features, but we're going to be exploring lots of features because these new features work with legacy features and existing features as a really brilliant system. And this is part one of the new features expose. And we're going to be looking at features that are, at first glance might appear to be unremarkable, but really they're not. They're like excellent. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. Now, today we're going to have like a really easy going pace. We're going to go nice and slow. We're going to do spontaneous things, improvisational things. This is definitely not what you would call a hard sell. We're going to explore the limitations of the program. If it's going a little bit too slow for you, you can check out and come back later. After this presentation becomes available on YouTube for repeating, then I'll go back and create an index, and then you'll be able to go back and review all of the parts that you want to see to get, to rewatch it. And so today, nice and slow, easy pace. Okay, Jeff said, I picked up SpectraLayers Pro because I have 10 boxes of reel-to-reel tapes. Yeah, definitely. Yep. It took a year to transfer everything. Sure, it's a real-time process. You have to get set up and make sure that your tapes are all baked and ready to go. And then your machine is calibrated, and you take your outputs, and hopefully you're using some really nice converters, and you're coming in at 2496 or higher. And it's a long process, but once you get it done, it's so gratifying. And SpectraLayers is so great for archival stuff and bringing stuff back to life. So get out those cassette and reel-to-reel tapes that you have stored in your attic and get busy with those. Now, the operations that I'm going to show you today, you can do all of these in the standalone version and the ARA mode. Again, like I said, we will be working in standalone version most of the time, but toward the end of the presentation, I'm going to dip over to Cubase, and we'll do a little bit of ambience matching in ARA mode. And the ambience match is a new feature in SpectraLayers Pro 8. Okay. Now, a few weeks ago, when SpectraLayers Pro 8 launched, on the same day the program was launched, 5 videos were made available. And these are the 5 videos that accompany the launch of SpectraLayers Pro 8. Improved tools, including select harmonics, eraser and amplifier, and pitch shift. The select harmonics tool we will be going back to today, and we will be revisiting that because there are some features in the tool that are not shown in the video. And so between the improved tools video and what I show you here today, that will definitely round out your knowledge base so that you'll know pretty much everything you need to know about Select Harmonics tool. And then we have the EQ and ambience match video. I put these together into one. EQ and ambience match kind of work hand in hand to make audio files conform in post or, mastering in scenarios where you need to do matching. And so the EQ and ambience match, the processes have a similar workflow. They work really well together. And today we will be looking closely at the ambient match in sound design. And then we have the de-bleed process. And, and now here it says, we'll be taking a closer look at this today based on user feedback. Actually, I should have revised that. We're actually not going to be going back into that feature today because I decided that I have enough material to do 2 parts. And so, I typed this copy into this slide before I became aware that this should really be 2 videos in that one. And so the de-bleed process, you can learn all about this on the video that's posted on the Steinberg site. AI-powered reverb reduction, same thing. We'll be revisiting this and doing more work with this in part 2 of our new features. Let's call it a series, I guess. It may be 2 and maybe more, but for sure it's going to be more than 1. And then finally, ambience match in ARA mode. And this video was specifically made for post-production people who work in Nuendo. And again, SpectraLayers is great as a standalone application, but when you combine it with your, DAW workflow with Cubase and Nuendo, in ARA mode, audio random access, that's when the possibilities of SpectraLayers just kind of blows up, and you can have it in your workflow in really remarkable ways. And so ARA mode, when SpectraLayers took on ARA functionality, that's where the program really turned the corner and became a absolutely vital part of the workflow, and really easy to access. All right. And so that's it for this slide. And let's do some stuff. Now, before we begin looking at the SpectraLayers Pro 8 features, take a look at this. This is SpectraLayers 8 open, and I have something open here, but I'm going to close it out. And I would like to tell you about the last time I used SpectraLayers in a real-world scenario. And I'm going to open this this clip called Bell Audio. Okay, now, here I have opened a layer in SpectraLayers, and I'm ready to get to work. The first thing I like to do usually is change the color, because I like blue better than green. Okay, leave it at that. And then up here in the upper right-hand corner, I have the display panel. And this is where I can do things like focus my screen resolution to get a really nice and sharp view. Here we have FFT size, and here we have minimum and maximum amplitudes, which control brightness. And you can kind of think of these controls as the the aperture controls on a camera, or the focus controls on a camera. They do pretty much the same thing. They let light in or take it away, and they sharpen up your image so that you can see exactly what you're working on. Okay, now what you see in front of you is a excerpt from a voiceover track that I was making in the process of doing one of these videos. Check this out. I'm choosing the time range selection tool up here in the tools panel. Okay, one more time. I'm choosing the time range selection tool up here in the tools panel. Right. Can you hear the problem? The problem is, unfortunately, I had my phone on while I was creating this this narration track, and one of the notification sounds went off, and the phone was like far away. It was like 10 feet away, but it's pretty quiet down here, and so the ring sound, or the notification sound, came through and got printed along with my voice. Here in the tools, you can hear it. Here in the tools panel. Now here you can see it. It comes in like two harmonics. It looks like they built a fundamental right here, and then they put a higher tone in here to give it more impact or intelligibility. Here in the tools panel, it's a very penetrating sound, and so we will erase this sound, and I'll show you how I did that in SpectraLayers. Now I'm placing my cursor at the end of the ringtone, and I'm using my scroll wheel to expand the timeline so that I can see the tone that I want to work on. Over here in the frequency range column, the vertical axis, I'm going to scroll on that until the first tone becomes clearly visible. Now you can see here in the tools panel, this is the lower part of the tone. And how are we going to get rid of this? We are going to use the trusty eraser tool. Excuse me for a moment. Thank you. We will use the eraser tool to remove the sound from the content. Up here in the upper left in the tools panel, I'm going to choose the eraser tool. And when I choose that tool, a bunch of controls are made available on the top line. And let's take a look and see what those do. Now, when I balance my eraser tool over the sound, you can actually see what the effect of that sound is going to be. And I can adjust my tool size up here. Right now I'm set at 54 pixels, and I can back off on that a little bit, make it a little bit smaller. Now I'm at 41, and I'm balanced right over the top of the sound. And one thing I would like to point out here that is interesting is that you can zoom in and out of the audio spectrum, but the tool size always stays the same. So for example, if I zoom in on the frequency range and make the sound thicker, then you can see, look, my eraser tool stays the same size. And so the point is that the eraser tool size does not expand when you zoom in. It stays the same. And so this creates kind of a relationship where, like say, for example, if you wanted to, this tool in its current state is kind of like, it's almost right, but it's not quite big enough to cover the entire sound. Instead of making the tool bigger to do that, I can just zoom out a little bit like this until the tool then covers the entire sound. And again, it's just a matter of a little bit of give and take between the tool size and your zoom factor. And now with the eraser tool balanced over the top, all I have to do is draw over the top of that sound. And I'll skip over the part that's covered by my voice. And I'll just draw over the top of that sound until it's no longer there. And you can see it going away. And there. Now it's completely gone. Okay. And so now I'm going to scroll back down again. And we have one remaining frequency up here that needs to be taken care of. I'll zoom in on that. And like this. Now I'll take my tool again and draw over the top of that sound. And mission accomplished. Now you can no longer see or hear the sound. And let's play it. Here in the Tools panel. Here in the Tools panel. See, the ring used to be there. Here in the Tools panel. Now it's not there. I will perform Command Z and back out of that. And bring the sound back. Oh, I'm sorry, it was over here. Okay, now the sound is totally back, and it used to sound like this. Here in the Tools panel, and now it's gone. And so, that's how I fixed that. Michael says, that's just full of awesome. It is. It totally is. And again, SpectraLayers is making, advancements in artificial intelligence fueled processes. But hey, these good old legacy tools here, these, let's not forget how cool and wonderful they are. They work so great. So I'm going to close out of this. And no need to save that. Okay. And I showed you that because I thought maybe you'd like to see how I used SpectraLayers in a real-world situation. Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention this, and before we go on to the next thing, and I hope that you can hear this presentation in stereo, because we're going to be working a lot with right and left side differences in sounds. That last sound you heard was I believe it was a mono sound, but if you have the capability to listen in stereo, like if you have a phone and you're listening to it over your phone speaker, try to plug in a pair of headphones or earbuds, because you definitely, moving forward here, you're going to want to hear left and right differences. Okay, let's go on to another new feature. And this feature is called Dynamic Visual Preview of the Selection While Drawing. And I'm going to open a bamboo flute here. You've seen this file before. This is a Robert Rich flute sample, and I've used this in other demonstrations. It sounds nice. And again, I'm up here in the upper right-hand side and getting some nice focus in here. And this time I'm going up here to the Tools panel on the left, and I'm going to select the Frequency Selection tool. Now, this is the SpectraLayers 7 paradigm. I would make a selection. Like, say I want to select the fundamental of a couple of flute notes here. Oh, by the way, we are going to go to the View menu and go to Frequency Unit Lock Spectrogram to 0 Hertz. That way, no matter how I scroll my audio content, 0 Hertz is always going to be available at the very bottom of the screen. It's kind of an anchor. It anchors things down. And so now that we're zoomed in, let's pick a note. Let's pick a couple of notes. In the old SpectraLayers paradigm, in the SpectraLayers 7 paradigm, to audition a selection, you would make a selection like this. Here I'm selected a note, a fundamental. And then after you select the note, you hit the space bar like this. I just hit the space bar. And that's how you preview the selection. So again, the process, make the selection and preview it. Now in SpectraLayers Pro 8, you can preview the selection while you're making it. So now here, I'm starting to draw a selection on the note, and while I'm doing it, I'm hitting the space bar like this, see? And look how that tool picks up that note. It really locks down on it. So as I drag the note out, it gets longer. My addition process gets longer. There we're going into sort of the ambience after that note. Okay. I could stop here. Now watch, when I go over here to select this note, oops, this selection went away. Okay, that's because we are set for replace selection. Every time I make a selection, the previous selection disappears. If I go right next to this and I click the Add to Selection button, now I can make non-contiguous selections in the spectral graph. And I'll place my cursor here, and then Command D to deselect what I've done, and then I'll start over and make my selection and continue listening to it as I go. Now I can lift my finger off the mouse and go to the next portion that I want to select, and I can begin selecting that. My first selection remains. And now we're auditioning as we go. And that is called Dynamic Visual Preview of the Selection while drawing. And another new feature in SpectraLayers Pro 8 is the ability to save selections to the project and recall them. You can save and recall selections. Let's just select a couple more notes. I'll go here and pick this one. And here. Again, I'm auditioning as I go. Let's try putting the cursor here and starting the audition at a different point. Okay, great. I'll just grab the last part of this phrase. There we go. And I think there's one little note at the end of this that we can grab as well. And no, I guess that's it. So our selection again. Perfect. Now, new in SpectraLayers Pro 8, I can go to Select, Save Selection, and I can call this the fundamental. Fundamental tone. Okay. So now that selection is saved with SpectraLayers, and it's saved in the project. I can save my project, open it up again later, and rope it in, pull it in. Let's try that. So I'm going to use Command D to deselect the selection, and then go to Select, Load Selection. And here we are, Bamboo Flute, Fundamental Tone. Click OK, and the selection comes back just like I planned it. Let's try something a little bit different. Let's try just adding a couple more harmonics. And so I'm going to deselect this selection, and then I'll just select the next harmonic up, it's an octave. Very pure. And so now I'm pulling this octave and auditioning as I go. And it's a little bit obscure here. I can't quite tell what to take. Let's see how this works. Okay, that's great. So now I can save this selection as a harmonic. We'll call it harmonic. Okay, great. So now that selection is saved. And I'll deselect. Now, when I go back to load selection, I can load the fundamental tone. And I can go back and I can load the harmonic. Right? Oh, look, it replaced the fundamental tone. So now it's the harmonic only. But what if I go back to load selection and choose the fundamental tone again, like I just did? But this time, I'm going to click Add to Selection. Now they're both there. Boy, it's amazing how that fundamental, along with the first octave, so much of the character of the sample is in a very it's in a very small space there with the fundamental and the first harmonic. And so you can now create really complex selections, and you're not going to have to worry about losing work. And you can also divide your selections up into categories, like I just did. Fundamental tone, first harmonic, and save them as separate selections, and you can rebuild your selection right on the spectral graph. You can replace stuff, you can add to, and it's a really great feature. And again, the key takeaway here is that this saves with your project. You can save the SpectraLayers project, open it back up again, and your selections are available. And so I guess, you don't have to worry about losing work. Okay, that's that feature. Let's go over to the comments and see what people are talking about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, talking about filling in holes in content that you're manipulating. And in the unmixed components process, and I believe the unmixed stems process, there's a button that you can click that will interpolate holes in the spectrum and fill it in with adjacent material. And so this is especially great for working with material where there's a lot of noise, because if you pull something out of a noise field, then you're going to have a hole there. And when you play the noise field, then you're definitely going to hear that hole. It doesn't take a very big hole before you can really hear the result. But with the interpolation feature built into unmixed components, especially, you can fill those holes with noise as you go. And it's a great feature. And so this was a dynamic visual preview of the selection while drawing, and then save multiple selections with SLP8 projects. 2 new features in SpectraLayers Pro 8. And these are sort of, I don't really want to call them second-tier features. That doesn't feel right. What the truth is that these new top-line features with artificial intelligence and really sophisticated processes, these really open the door for the legacy tools to become more effective. And so SpectraLayers, being the system that it is, and it is a system where when one part gets stronger, all of the part gets stronger. And once again, in the next feature that we're going to be looking at, and that feature is called inter-channel copy-paste functionality. When I got to that feature, it occurred to me that this was going to be more than just a single live stream, that we're going to have to divide this up into parts, because the inter-channel copy-paste functionality, while appearing to be kind of like a low-level feature, or a meek and mild kind of thing compared to a big, fancy artificial intelligence process. This feature is amazing, and it creates sound design avenues that we're going to explore today. Yes, very interesting today in the comments. Talking about tape. Very interesting. Yeah. And let's enjoy a drink of our beverage here. I have a nice coffee that I will try, and then we're going to transition over to a new thing. All right. And once again, welcome to the Hangout. Great to see you here. Let's clear the deck and start a new thing. And again, I hope you're listening to this in stereo, because we're going to be doing a lot of stereo work here today. All right, listen to this. I'm going to open up a sound file here, and this is not stereo. This is a mono file. It might be a 2-channel. Let's see, let's try. Okay, this is a 2-channel file. It's not really stereo. It's the same thing in both the left and right channels. Okay, check it out. Listen to this. Okay, and then a slight pause. Okay, now I'm going to set up the use case for you here. And let's take a look at the instrument that made this sound. This sound was made by this particular keyboard right here. And this is a wind-driven instrument. It's like an accordion or a harmonica. There is an electric motor inside of it, and the motor is blowing air through the system. And then when you press a key, then it opens up a reed, and the blower blows air through the reed, and that's how you get that sound. And that's why you get that kind of like there's a hiss in the background. That hiss is actually the sound of the motor in the keyboard device. And here in this case, my friend Rick, he's a circuit bender, and he created this system of solenoids or something that you could put here. They're attached to this ruler. And then he built a CV gate into it where you can feed it MIDI on-off commands. And so we sampled 16th notes, eighth notes, quarter notes, half notes, 1-measure phrases, and 2-measure phrases. You hit this with a MIDI note, this thing slams down, plays the key, and then when it receives the note off command, the playing stops. And we took about 200 samples. I think we did six samples per key, and then you multiply that by the number of keys. And we recorded it in mono, and you can see a Shure SM57 here. This mic did not end up being used. We didn't use this. We used an Atlantis, a Lauten Atlantis large diaphragm condenser, one mic that we hung about 2 feet over the top of this, and we recorded it in mono. And so, again, let's listen to the sound that this produces. Oops, here we go. Okay, now, when I cut these samples, I placed a fade at the end of each one. So here you can see this area here. This is the fade portion, and that's the part that contains the motor noise. In a real-world scenario, if you were listening to a person playing this instrument in the room, then this noise, all this stuff here, would be continuous across the entire time range. And so you would hear the motor at all times. All right. And so I'm going to close out of this, and I'm going to open, let's see here. Let's try this. Okay, so now this is the same thing, but This has been rendered out into a 2-channel file in which all of the signal is happening on the left and there's silence on the right. And this is where the stereo comes in. So again, if you are capable of listening to this in stereo, now's the time to start doing that. Put on your earbuds or whatever. So here we have. Okay. Now we're going to start sound designing on this. And I created a 2-channel file because we're going to use this new feature called inter-channel copy-paste functionality to do sound design work. SpectraLayers 7 was not capable of this. In SpectraLayers Pro 8, now you have the capability to copy material from one channel or cut it even and place it into another channel. And moving forward, we're gonna do a sound design job on this, and I'll show you how that works. And again, I'm going to change the color here. And let's see, this time let's pick this nice orange. So we have orange, and I'm gonna focus it up here on the right-hand side. Use my refinement tools so that I can very clearly see what I'm looking at. And I'm going to go back up here to the View menu and choose Frequency Unit, lock spectrogram to 0. And there we go. Now, we're going to focus on the very last note here. Okay. Let's go back to the harmonics selection tool. I'm going to use the frequency selection tool here to select the fundamental. And excuse me for one moment. Let's stretch this out a little bit so that we can get a better view, a little bit closer. There we go. And I'm going to simply select the fundamental tone here, and let's listen to it. Great. Once again, I can use dynamic preview and watch I'm making the selection and hitting the spacebar and previewing it as it goes by. New feature. Now, with the fundamental selected, I'm going up to the select menu and I'm going to choose select harmonics. And this is a simple process. I have a choice of 10 harmonics, and the master rank is where you define what the lowest tone, the role of the lowest tone in your selection. And this is the fundamental, and so we're going to leave this at 1. And so when I click OK, I get 10 harmonics. Okay, and this feature is explored in the video that was released with SpectraLayers Pro 8. It's new, and the video talks about this in conjunction with some other processes in the video called New Tools and Processes. And so now I'm going to hit the delete key on this, or the Command D key to deselect the selection and go back to the beginning. Now, let's do this again. I'm going to select the fundamental tone. And I think I grabbed a little bit too much of that at the start, so I'm just going to grab a nice clean tone like this. Okay, now I'm going to go back to select harmonics. And this time, I'm going to choose the harmonics that I want to select. And so I have 1 through 10 available. 10's up here. And 1 is the fundamental. Now, I'm going to take even harmonics that include the fundamental in the selection. So the master rank is 1. This is the fundamental. I have 1 checked. Now, the rest of the harmonics I choose are going to be even order harmonics. So I'm choosing 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And now when I select that, even harmonics are selected along with the fundamental. And it's playing on the left side only. I'm going to select the left channel, and then I'm going to cut these even order harmonics out of the material. Okay, now they're gone. They don't exist there anymore. And I'm going to create a new layer. And let's call this even. I'm kind of making this up as I go along. We'll call it even, odd, stereo. Okay, so now I have a layer called even odd stereo. And I'm going to mute the chord organ layer. And now we can see that there's nothing in this layer yet. I have the ability to select either channel or both. If I hit the Shift key, I can select both. But we're going to take the even harmonics and we're going to put them over here on the left. So with the left channel selected, I go paste. Oops, the active layer is not visible. I always do this. The target layer always has to be the active layer. And I swear, this is my fatal flaw. It gets me every single time. And so this is the layer that I want to drop the content into. It's now the selected layer. And the left channel of the selected layer is chosen. And now I can paste it in. And there we go. Now we have the even harmonics on the left side only. Okay. Let's take the evens, and I'm going to go to the left layer and do a select all and copy that. And now I'm going to go down to the right layer and paste that in there. So now I have the fundamental along with the even harmonics on both sides of the sample. And let's listen to that. Hold on. And here we go. Okay, that's great. And if I go back here, you can see that I'm back at my original sample with the fundamental and the evens are gone. Right? And you can really tell it sounds kind of wheezy because all of the important harmonics, the evens, are gone, but the odds are still there. So with this layer selected, now I'm going to go to the left-hand side, and basically what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to make this the same on both sides. And so I'm going to do a select all on the left-hand side. And this time I'm going to copy it. I'm not going to cut it. I'm going to make a copy. And then I'm going to go over to the right-hand side of that layer and paste it right in there, like so. Now I have the same thing on both sides, and I can solo that. Okay, great. And now I have the evens here too. Okay, so basically what I've done here, the sound has reassembled itself, and it sounds exactly the same as the original sound, except for I have the fundamental and the even harmonics on one layer and everything else on another, which is great. And now we have the ability to control these two layers individually. And let's take a quick minute here and go back and look at some of the comments. Yeah, very cool. Something about the harmonics making the nasal sound. Yeah, I make oboe reeds. We always attempt to build the reed with more even harmonics and less odd. Right. The odd harmonics make the nasal sounds. And this is very important here because as we process this sound, we're going to be doing processing on the most sonorous parts of the sound, which of course are the evens. When using harmonic selection feature, can you go above 10? Just like you can using the mastering. Now, right now, only the first 10 harmonics are available, But if you use the legacy harmonics selection tool, why then you can select pretty much as many harmonics as you need all the way up the spectrum. But this even odd selection choice tool, the automatic selection tool currently is limited to 10 harmonics. Okay, let's take a drink of whatever we're having here. I'm having some coffee and water. Okay. So we have 3 things on deck here. Let's take a quick review of what they are. This is the layer that's missing the harmonics, and here we have the evens. You know, I really wanted to pull those odds. I'm not really sure what happened. I suppose I could go back and try again, but I don't know. Something slightly went off the tracks there, and so this is not quite as sophisticated as I had planned it, but that's okay. I'm going to delete now this layer that we don't need anymore, and now we're left with this and this. Now, why is this useful? Well, say if, for example, you wanted to do processing on the even harmonics layer only. So basically what we're doing here is we're applying effects to only the most sonorous parts of the sound. In this case, I could add some reverb to it. VST3 effects. And here we are in Valhalla Vintage Verb, and I can do VST3 effects processing right inside the program. And let's dial our mix down to about 50%, half and half. And I'll take the pre-delay all the way off. And I'll turn my high cut all the way up so that we get a nice rich reverb effect set at 4 seconds. Let's preview that. Okay, as you can see, it's only coming in on one channel. We have to have both channels selected. And while we're at it, I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's make a copy of the evens. So I'm going to duplicate the evens, and then I'm going to call this dry or 100% wet reverb. So I'll rename this to 100% wet reverb. And I'll click OK. And now we have the reverb. We can bring in the reverb 100% wet and have the dry evens layer available at all times so that we can mix the reverb after the fact. So with this layer now, the active layer, I'll go back up to Process, VST3 Effects, and now I can turn my mix control to 100% wet, which is great because we can do completely artifact-free processing. And it went away. Let's bring it back. VST3 Effects. Here we are. Let's preview the sound. Okay. And you can see what the result of the sound is going to be once we commit. And you can see now that it's coming in on both channels because we have both channels selected. And again, that feature is inter-channel copy-paste functionality. And let's preview it again. Great. Nice and long. Okay, Valhalla Reverb's pretty cool. So then let's run with that. So I'll click OK and process it. And now we have the original layer that we extracted the evens from. And we have dry evens, 100% wet reverb, and play it all together. So that's a beautiful, natural sound. What is the advantage of this? Well, the reverb is being applied to only the most harmonically pleasing portions of the sound. That's one thing. Another thing is that all of the motor noise in that sound, there's no reverb on that. and any other extrinsic noises that come with the sound, like key on, key off, annoying sounds that could create unwanted reverb effects. Those are gone. And so now what we get is a pure sonorous reverb that's placed on the even harmonics only. Great. That's good sound design. And, I could have done this to the whole file, but I'm only doing it to one note here, just, to keep things moving and go quickly. And let's go back to the comments. Hey, Marvel Jam. Yeah, you get a spectral preview of the effect before you commit. Yep, you can actually see what's going to happen. I like that feature too. That's cool. Oh wow, here's another weird instrument guy, Michael Pierce. Take a picture of his fave instrument at the studio, a little toy reed organ. Yeah, it's noisy. All this stuff makes a lot of unwanted noise, and in SpectraLayers we can really go far in controlling that. I'm still trying to figure out where I went off the tracks, because I wanted to extract the odd harmonics too. That creates a really strange ambience, but I suppose it would take me a while to sort that out. So maybe in another demo. But yeah, interchannel copy paste functionality is cool. It's kind of an underdog feature. And again, when I saw, when I started working with this feature, I thought to myself, oh wow, this is great. The other thing I wanted to say is that, there are other, plugins that kind of do this. You can pan your signal, from right to left, and keep the low range or whatever in the center. And so it's a panner with a cutoff frequency built in there that, or not a cutoff frequency, a crossover frequency. It's a panner with a crossover frequency built in, so that when you pan everything below a set frequency amount, like say 200 hertz or so, stays centered. And, it's great for keeping mixes centered, and it's great for things like acoustic guitar, where you can keep a nice, strong lower mid-range foundation while having the other stuff move around. And SpectraLayers does it better, frankly. And let's take a real quick look at how that might work. Using SpectraLayers just to create kind of a pseudo-stereo spread, as opposed to using a plugin that pans content and leaves everything below a certain frequency centered. And so I'm going to close out of this. I hope you enjoyed this. This is actually kind of fascinating. It's a great way to learn about harmonics, how harmonics sound, even versus odd. Pretty amazing. So I'm going to go back to something on just the left alone. Let's see here. 2 phrases. I have one phrase left, so nice and short. Okay, let's listen to this. Hey, Marvel Jam, are you actually in Wisconsin? I am. Here I am. I'm in Madison, so it's good to see you here. Wisconsin guy, yeah, man. It's cool. And so here we are again with the organ sound on the left. And I'm going to kind of try to create a pseudo-stereo spread based on ambience. And again, this is something you can do with a plugin, but SpectraLayers does it better. I am going to select my time range selection tool, and like so. And no, I'm going to select the frequency range selection tool, like so. And I'm going to pull it down from, let's say, 1.4K down. Okay, now watch. I'm pulling this down, and I can hit my spacebar and preview it as it's going down. Try again. That's cool. Excellent. This is one of the new features in SpectraLayers Pro 8, but now check this out. Starting at about 1.4K, and you can see the 1.4K frequency indicator here, I'll place my frequency selection tool right on top of that and pull down. Now watch what happens when I pull down. And by the way, I have both channels selected, but actually, it doesn't matter, but actually I should only have the left-hand side selected, so let's do that. So starting at 1.4K and pulling down, look at the fade. You can see that it has the most color density right here in the middle, and that's where the fade is going to be the strongest. Now, I control that up here in the frequency fade window. And right now, the frequency fade is set at 1500 hertz, which is huge. I mean, that's really huge. Let's set it to 0. And I'm going back to 1.4, and I'm pulling down. Okay, now look, now there's no fade. It's solid. All the way across the fade range, you have one solid color, and that's the effect that you see because there's no fade. Now, with my left side selected, I'm going to cut that frequency out, and now it's gone. And then I'm going to go over to the right, and I'm going to paste it in on the right. And now we have this thing divided up into frequencies per channel. Let's listen to it. And the left side. Okay. And the right side. We can do a lot better. But I just wanted to demonstrate for you the effects of that fade. Let's go and let's make for ourselves a nice fade of 400 hertz. And we're going to start lower in the spectrum. We'll start at about the 1K range. And now I'm going to pull down, and you can see that the fade, it feathers out, and it feathers out in like a 500 hertz span. Okay, now, this is really interesting. Watch this. Now, if I pull this down, we've got a fade on both sides, or, top and bottom. The lowest of the low frequencies fade up, and the higher frequencies, they fade down. And so the problem is I'm losing the low end. Like, say, if I stop my fade here, I'm losing the low end. But I can drag the fade below 0 dB. Now watch, see, here's 0. Now I'm dragging, it looks like 0 actually defaults to full fade. Like that. But just to be sure that you're getting all of the information from 0 hertz up. Look, I'm pulling this down like this. And now everything here, there's no fade at 0 hertz. And there's a nice 400 hertz fade here at the higher end of the selection. And so let's try this. I'm going to cut and make sure. There. I'm going to make sure that the left is selected. That's what we want. That's what I should have had selected to begin with, actually. But we're good. And now I'm going to cut that out and go down to the right. And I'm going to paste it in right there. So now this should be a more pleasing result. And it is. It's more pleasing. Let's solo. Oh, we don't need to be seeing these here, do we? Let's solo the left channel. And the right. Okay. That was about, I believe that was about a 1.4K cutoff point. I'm going to back out of here and undo everything, go back to where we started. This time I'm going to go to 2K and make a selection on the left. And actually, I'm going to increase my fade up to 757 hertz. And I'm going to start at about 2K and dial it down. Look, you can see I keep pulling down until everything at 0 hertz is captured. And then I'm going to cut it and go over to the right and paste it in there. And let's listen to the result of this move. Interesting. This is all high end. Okay, let's try one more time, and then we'll move on to something else. But just quickly, it's nice to be able to show you the differences here of what can be done. Let's start at we'll start at 700 hertz with a 700 hertz fade. This should be. I'm going to decrease the fade just a little bit to 400, and then we'll start just above 7. Pull it down, cut, and oops, I selected from the wrong side. Delete, left, cut, and select the right, and paste. And this will be our last time doing this. This is probably close to being the best one that we've done. And what if we applied a little bit of reverb to that now? And just see how it pans out in the mix. We'll go really light with the reverb, 20%. And preview. Okay, we need to apply that to both sides. And so I'll select both channels, process, VST3 effects, 22%, and let's try that. There we go. Wow, 20% sounds really loud. Let's try one more time with just 5%. Okay, stop. And let's process this. So now we have the reverb burned right into the track that we've created, kind of a pseudo stereo effect with the two sides. And the reverb definitely brings home the idea here that places the effect into a space that is truly stereo. It sounds almost as if the performer is on the left and he's in a big dark room and the low frequencies are kind of like echoing off a wall on the right. Yep. And so that's a really great use for interchannel copy and paste functionality. This is a great feature. And again, you know, as I was planning this presentation, when I got to this feature, I was like, wow, it's kind of a very welcome addition to the SpectraLayers Pro 8 package. Okay, now let's start something new. I'm going to take a quick drink of water here. Okay, we're back. And we're going to close out of this. And reduce SpectraLayers. And now we're going to go into Cubase. Now, in Cubase here, we are starting with a blank slate. And the reason why I'm doing that is because we want to very closely follow the path that our different audio content is taking and locating it within the DAW project. And by starting out with a blank slate, it's really easy to trace, where the sound is going. And so up here in the pool window, let's import a file. Chord organ, 2 phrases. And this should be the file. I hope it is the file that we're looking for. I think it is. And let's drag this in. And so now we have our 2 phrases. Let's listen to them both. Make sure they work. Okay, that's the first phrase. And the second phrase, it works. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to use ambience match to create the sound of the motor in the silent spaces. And again, I'll point out to you here that at the very ends of the sound, you can hear a fade. Okay, now that fade that you're hearing is not the natural fade of the keyboard. It is the sound of the actual sound being faded, because this was made up of a single sample, and it fades out at the end, like so. But in the real world, that blower sound is happening all the time. And if we wanted to recreate that sound here, why, we can do that using the ambience match feature in SpectraLayers Pro 8. Now, to get started doing that, the first thing we need to do is we need to create a place where we can drop the ambience. And we're going to drop the ambience on a new audio track. So add audio track, and it comes in stereo. You have to make sure to use the same channel count when you're bouncing stuff back and forth in and out of Cubase in the window, along with SpectraLayers. If you're using a mono file, you have to kind of stay in the mono world. If you're using a stereo file, the same goes for that. If you're working on a stereo file and you open a mono file in SpectraLayers in ARA mode, it will show up, but it will be on a different project, and they won't be able to relate to each other as easily. So let's add this track. And now with this track added, I'm simply going to grab the pencil tool and make a segment, an audio segment on the clip. What we're doing here is we're creating an audio clip to drop the ambience onto. And now that we have this clip in place, we can select on it and go to render in place, render with current settings. And now we have an actual audio track. And like I said, I want to be very careful here and trace the paths of these different audio things so that you can see actually what's happening. So here we have the original chord organ in the pool, and here we have the new blank stereo audio track with nothing on it. And back out of the pool, and reduce the view here a little bit. And by the way, we no longer need this clip because we've generated the stereo audio track that we need from it, and so we can remove that track. Now we're left with the chord organ sample and the audio track. So what we want to do is select them both, and you can see that the waveforms open in the audio editor window. And we want to open these in SpectraLayers as an extension in ARA mode. So I'll go to the audio menu and choose extensions and SpectraLayers. Click. And now the material shows up in SpectraLayers, and it'll be a lot easier to differentiate the layers if I give them a color. I'll give each one its own color. And so I'll color this one blue, and whoops, I made them both blue. We'll make this one orange. And now you can see that we have a blue organ layer and an orange empty layer, and the corresponding colors show up in SpectraLayers. Excuse me. And now let's get to the business of using ambience match to create a noise layer that sounds like the tone that's being generated by the chord organ. Here I am going into my chord organ layer. And let's audition just the noise. Hear that kind of wheezing sound? That's the noise of the motor that we're going to sample using the ambience match process. And so I'm going to use the time range selection tool to do that. And I'm going to use no fade whatsoever, zero fade. And so let's make a selection and audition it using the spacebar. Okay, I can deselect that. One thing I don't want to include is the sound of the key releasing. Listen, now you can hear that. This is what it sounds like when the chord organ key is gets released by the solenoid kind of robotic arm that it's attached to. You get that. So that's definitely not going to be part of the sample. But you can see that that sound decays extremely quickly, and we're left here with just the noise. And so what I'm going to do is go to Process, Ambience Match, Register Ambience, and the Ambience Match is registered. It's placed in the buffer. Then I click OK. And now I want to apply the ambience match, except I probably should have had this selected when I made that selection. Let's do it one more time. Select. Register ambience. Okay, now I've actually sampled it from the layer, the relevant layer. Now I'm going to go down to the new blank audio layer, and you can see, look, it's completely blank. And we're going to fill this entire layer with the ambience. So back to Process, Ambience Match, click OK. And now we have ambience across the entire track. And let's listen to a few seconds of that. I'll solo it. And that's the sound of the motor. And it's kind of uncanny. I mean, you know, it sounds so much like the real thing that it's amazing. And you can see if you examine the contents of this layer, it's basically the layers are made up of you know, kind of striated noise. And inside of this, you can see different bands, and these bands, I suppose, you know, they represent the sonic signature of the motor noise. And what do you get? The motor noise. All right, just one moment. Okay, now getting into the details here, these are some pretty fine details. But now if I go back to the original chord organ sound and extend out, and I'm going to solo that. Actually here, now we're all set. So the chord organ sound still has the sound of the fade in there that's built into the sample. And when you combine that with the ambience match, you can kind of hear it. It kind of tapers down. Like here you can hear it. You can hear it especially here. You can hear both the sample fade and the ambience noise layer together. So there's kind of a decay there. Now, if I wanted to, I can sort of purify the chord organ layer. Now that we have the ambience in there, well, I guess the easiest way to say it is that now we have the ambience in there. There's no need for the motor fade. It doesn't really add anything anymore because that bass is now covered by the ambience. Right? So we can easily cut that out of the sample, and I'll do that by using the time range selection tool. And this time I'm going to put a little bit of fade on there, maybe just, 0.15 of a second, and I'll make a selection here. You can see the fade. And that's the sound. And you can see no part of the motor noise is in there. Again, I don't the hold on here. The part of the sound that I don't want to select is, oh, it's still not there. Hold on. Yeah. Okay, this note doesn't really have a clacky kind of release on it, so we're good. Again, time range selection tool, and select the range. And then with that selected, I can just simply cut it. Active layer. Gets me every time. Select the active layer, cut, and now it's gone. Deselect. It goes down to complete silence. Now when we combine that with the actual ambient match layer, it just kind of perfects the sound a little bit. And I have one more thing I'd like to talk about here, and that is basically the destinations for this material, and we'll get to that in a second. And let's look at the comments here. Audio extension, SpectraLayers. Aha, yes indeed. VST, easy to compose with. Yes, it is. What I really like now is VST control over actual analog hardware. That's really starting to be trendy. Replacing guitar strings, I've done that a few times. Preview function is great. I am amazed. So am I. This is great. Korg microsynthesizer. Yep. Great. Good. Hey, Jeff. Good luck sampling. Hello. Spectral preview. Showing up late. Better late than never, Marvel Jam. Glad to see you here. You'll be able to go back and review these later. I'll have them all indexed so that you can get to the point that you want to see. Let's talk a little bit about the workflow here. What is going on? Here's a rhetorical question. What is on this layer? Why, it's the chord organ sample. Here's a little more difficult to answer question. What is on this layer? Well, technically, there's nothing on this layer. This layer is just sort of like a marker. It's like a holding tank for the work that we're doing in SpectraLayers. If I go up to the pool, you can see that it exists as a file. But technically, if you were to drag this file over and open it in any other editor, you wouldn't hear anything because the sound is here in SpectraLayers as a SpectraLayers layer. And so basically, I don't really know how to say it. I guess that this audio layer is just an instruction set for SpectraLayers to play the content. What happens if I drag the edges here? Like say, for example, while the chord organ is playing, I don't really need the ambience match file because the organ is making it's kind of like a wheezy sound all its own. So I can drag the ends of the audio file, like this. And now you can see that the change is reflected in SpectraLayers. You can see that now only this portion is available. If I extend it back out, it comes back. And so this audio file is basically an empty audio file that's marking off the segments that are going to be played. Let's listen to that. What does this sound like? Oops. One moment, please. Mutant solo. Story of my life. Okay, here we go. Boom. And the chord organ noise kicks in right when it's needed, and it's not there when it's not needed. Now, if I save my project and open it again later, SpectraLayers opens in the project, and it gives me this exact same layout. Now, what if I were to disengage SpectraLayers right now in Cubase? I could grab both of these files. I could go to Audio, Extensions, remove extension from selected events, and it would go away, and all of your ambience match, it would be gone because SpectraLayers is no longer in the system. SpectraLayers is, the holding tank where all this ambience lives. So what we want to do then is we want to render out the ambience. And let's see, I could rename that now, but why bother? We want to render that ambience out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the track, and I'm going to go to edit, see, where's my render? Render in place, render with current settings. Okay. Let's, assuming that I had everything selected right, let's listen to the result. And the result is going to be here. Okay, now we've rendered the product out of SpectraLayers onto the timeline. And now if we go up to the media pool, of course, it's obvious. You're going to see that here as 010301. This is the new track. Now this track actually contains the physical audio that was generated in SpectraLayers. The ambience match is contained there. And so now, if I want to, I can reselect these and go to Audio Extensions, remove extension from selected events. And now I go back to the waveform display. I no longer need this track. It doesn't have any audio on it anyway. And so I'll get rid of it. And now I'm left with a real audio file that contains the actual ambience match as generated by SpectraLayers Pro 8. And there it is. Great, huh? And that is ambience match in ARA mode in Cubase. Good stuff. Perfect. And that just about concludes the process for today. What I'm going to show you. There will definitely be a part 2 here, and part 2 will have more exploration of these features. Let's do a quick review of what we looked at today. First, I showed you a real-world example of the last time I used SpectraLayers. I used the eraser tool to take out a bell sound, and the lesson I learned was leave the phone in the other room while you're doing this, or turn it off. And then we did dynamic visual preview of the selection. We used the bamboo flute sound, and we also did it quite a bit on some other sounds too. And the point here is that right now, artificial intelligence-based processes are sort of like the big thing, the glittering prize. And, in the software development world, sometimes, depending on the size of your team and your budget or whatever, you sort of, blaze forward with these new processes while you kind of ignore the stuff that's already there. And, and so a lot of times those legacy tools don't see a lot of improvement. Well, not so. In SpectraLayers 8, we're improving the legacy tools, like, for example, the limiter on the eraser tool and dynamic preview of selections, harmonic selection, and stuff like that. We are improving these manual tools right along with the artificial intelligence processing. And this is why. The reason is because as the artificial intelligence processing becomes better and smarter, the legacy tools become more valuable. And so the point is that these things work together as a system, and it's really important. And then we did save multiple selections with SpectraLayers Pro 8 projects, and I showed you how that worked. You can save a selection. You can recall a selection. When you recall the selection, you can bump out a previous selection and replace it, or you can add to it. And that's a great feature. And then we did interchannel copy and paste functionality, which is amazing. And again, that's what made me turn the corner and make this into a a two-part series instead of just doing it all in one shot. Because I think that this interchannel copy-paste functionality is sort of like, it can be a magic bullet for sound design, especially when you want to create stereo, pseudo-stereo effects. And I'm really sorry, I apologize. I wanted to put even harmonics on one side and odds on the other, but I don't know, it just, something happened, and I didn't want to bore you by troubleshooting that one. But it just goes to show that, these processes are new to me too. This program is just a few weeks old, and I'm just getting up to speed, just like everyone. And I really enjoyed putting together the 5 videos that released with SpectraLayers Pro 8. But when I got to these new features, these other new features that I haven't really explored yet, I got to interchannel copy paste, and I was like, whoa, this is pretty amazing. And then finally, I took you over to where we are now, which is Cubase, and we used SpectraLayers Pro 8 in audio random access mode, ARA mode, and I showed you the workflow of what happens when you do processing in ARA mode, where the audio goes, and how to bring SpectraLayers in and out of the workflow without losing anything. And so I hope you learned a little bit from that. It's really easy once you get the hang of it. And that's just about it. Let's take one more quick look here at the comments. And hey, thanks for showing up today, you guys and girls. I really enjoyed it. Hey, Cubase Nation, this was a great hangout, and yeah, perfect, except for the part about the odd harmonics. But maybe we'll try that again sometime. And here we go. Thank you for a first introduction to SpectraLayers. Yeah, it's very interesting. If you're a newbie here, a SpectraLayers novice, there are many videos on SpectraLayers, how it works. SpectraLayers Pro 8 released with 5 videos, and covering the most important processes, the most important new processes, or what we see as being top-line features, and driven by artificial intelligence and all the glittering prize kind of magic, the magic stuff. And then today in this hangout, we bearing down a little bit on the tools that do not appear to be as remarkable, but actually they really are. Cubase Hangouts. Slap that like button. Hey, we don't call them Hangouts anymore, man. We call them live streams now. That's the new order. Hey, Renee, thank you. Noise. Okay, you're welcome. Unmixed components, mute noise. What about removing the motor noise fades between the notes with noise print from motor noise? Yeah, you could do that. But the reason why we didn't do that is because the audio content that was used for this demonstration wasn't made up of a real-time performance that was played on the instrument. It was made up of like a bunch of different samples. And so what you're hearing is the samples played over MIDI and recorded, and the recorded audio has the blower noise in the fades. And the goal was not to remove noise, but the goal was actually to create noise, the noise that the device actually makes as if it were playing live in a room. But yeah, I mean, if you had a real-time live performance of this instrument, you could easily remove the noise using noise reduction, easily. Hey. Yes, indeed. Right. Jeff made this point, all the adjustments for zeroing in on things is what I'll need to practice endlessly. Nah, that's kind of true, but when I give these tutorials, like say for example, at the very beginning of this tutorial, when I showed you how to get rid of the noise of the phone ringing behind my voice at the very start, look, I mean, I could have done this in 10 seconds. It's like, but since I'm here in a tutorial mode, I went through every little process, and I had zoomed in, and I did every little fancy thing that I could to show you exactly what I was doing, okay? And that's the difference between the tutorial and how I would have behaved in the real world scenario. In the real world scenario, I don't think I would have even zoomed in. I would have grabbed the eraser tool and swiped it across that tone. Boom, gone, done. I could have been done in like 30 seconds, but I spent some minutes on it. After you get used to it, these tools, they go by lightning quick. And in these Hangouts here, I don't do that. I don't go by really quick like that because, what's the point? Then you don't learn anything. You have to, you're left with more questions than answers. And the goal here is not to be fast and efficient. The goal here is to be thorough and inspiring. And, I do hope that I was a little bit of both here today. I want to give you a thorough review, and I want to create inspiration. I'm inspired by experimental music, and I like this circuit bending stuff and the kinds of things that you can do in SpectraLayers with the products of your circuit bending experiments is really, really remarkable. Okay, and with that, I'm going to conclude this presentation. Make sure to check back later on tonight. This thing will all be indexed, and so you'll be able to check the index and quickly go to any part that you want to review. I usually do a pretty detailed index, but yeah, you should be able to come back and find the. Also, if you weren't able to listen to this in stereo, then you will be able to do that at your leisure when you review this product. And so with that, I bid you adieu. And one more quick look at the comments. Thorough and inspiring. Thank you, Jeff. We have to end this sometime. I have separation anxiety now because I like doing this so much. I could sit here all day, but we got to go. And so I hope to see you all very, very soon. Have a great time with SpectraLayers. Download the demo if you don't already have it. Go on the forums and look for help. The collection of videos that we're getting is so comprehensive that they provide a really, really good basis for getting to know SpectraLayers. And so thank you very much for participating in this. Again, I'm Mike Scheibinger. I'm in Wisconsin at Virtu Studio, my home studio, and I hope to see you again very, very soon. Everybody, take care and have a really excellent and safe weekend, okay? All right, thank you very much. Bye.